Hello, everyone, and welcome to WordNama. Stories have always helped us make sense of the world. They preserve memories, challenge beliefs, build empathy, and connect us across generations. Today, however, storytelling is entering a new chapter. Artificial intelligence can draft plots, imitate literary styles, and generate stories in seconds. But this raises questions that go beyond technology. As writers, we wonder, what does authorship mean now? As readers, we wonder, does it matter who tells the story? And as educators, we wonder, how do we nurture creativity and critical thinking when machines can generate text so effortlessly? But tonight isn't about deciding whether AI is good or bad. It's about exploring how AI is changing the way we read stories, write stories, and perhaps even understand what storytelling means. So let us begin. Let me introduce our panelists. So first we have Nupur, who will joining us in a while. So Nupur is professionally qualified CS, company secretary, but she's not practicing it. Apart from being a homemaker, she's actively involved in family business, and she's keen on learning new things and skills. She loves reading, playing board games, and she loves spending time with family, which is her most favorite thing. Now let me come to Vishaka. Vishaka works in education and research. She enjoys reading, writing. She currently lives in Pune, and she is a great writing buddy. Now, let me introduce our friend joining from Singapore, Lalita. Lalita used to work in finance, after which she took a break to be a full-time writer. She has written 2 books so far, the recent one being a middle grade fiction with Scholastic. She's from India, Kerala, but based out of Singapore. And now let me come to Nibraz. Nibraz is currently pursuing a PhD in biology. Writing short stories is her passion whenever she gets time. And with that introduction, my friends, let me begin our Q&A. So Lalita, let me pose this question to you. Where do you personally draw the ethical line in writing when it comes to writing? Brainstorming, editing, sentence polishing, or writing an entire chapter?
So that's a very contemporary and interesting topic, especially in the light of the Commonwealth controversy, where a writer was suspected of using AI or generative AI. So the question cannot be answered with a simple, we can use it for this or that. It's much more nuanced because we need to go back to see like how these models were trained. Do we have that kind of transparency to know what was fed into the model? Was it copyrighted material, or was it material that was given with the consent of the author, right? Because all of that is used to train the model and generate outputs. So the Authors Guild actually defined a set of rules around AI, saying that using AI you should be very careful while using AI, simply because you have to protect the intellectual property of the content that went into training the model, right? Personally, if you were to ask me, I use like tools like Grammarly for proofreading. And of late, these grammar tools have incorporated AI elements. And honestly, it's a slippery slope because the tool is pointing out, maybe you could write this sentence a bit better. And at what point do I draw the line? Like, where does my voice merge with a machine's voice and a machine that's been trained with some other author's inputs, right? So, in my opinion, if you were to look at it in a very black and white way, you'd probably use it for the stuff that saves time. So generative AI is a strict no-no for me, at least. Even brainstorming, I'd be very worried because the greatest asset of the human mind is its ability to think. We can't take that away. We will become highly dependent on a machine, and we don't want that, right? So the brainstorming, ideation, the writing, everything should belong to the writer. Now, where can the writer harness the power of AI? There are so many things that you can do which aren't part of the writing process, but every writer has to do. I can give you an example. Think of the non value adding tasks. Like, for example, you've written a story. You don't know where to submit it to. You could go by each site, or you could just feed into AI saying, listen, I have a story. This is a genre. This is the word limit. Give me a summary of all the journals that are accepting submissions and the last date and whatever are the submission criteria. Now that saves effort and time, right? So I can use it for search, for an optimized search. I can use it for research with a caveat that AI tends to hallucinate. So be very careful what you're asking for. If it's just collecting data from 3, 4 sites, that's okay, but nothing more than that. And you can also use AI as a training tool or as a learning tool. For example, I have a licensed version of Canva, right? But there are so many questions that, like, there are so many things that I'm not very familiar with, and the Canva help is just like a dump of data, right? So I can have this interactive session with my AI, asking, okay, what do I do about the copyright of this song, which I found in Canva, and I want to, import it. Right. I want to import it into Instagram, for example. So there are ways where you can use artificial intelligence to simplify your work and to make sure that it does not violate any intellectual property or cross any ethical line, but still preserving your critical thinking.
Okay, so basically you're saying that we need to know which task or which assignment or work to outsource to AI. Right.
Yes.
That is where you draw the line. All right, great.
Yes.
Great thought, Lalita. All right, welcome, Ajay. Good to have you with us finally.
Sneha, looking.
Okay, so Ajay, let me pass on the same question to you. I asked Lalita, where do you personally draw the ethical line when it comes to AI, and especially while writing? Like you're also a writer, so it's brainstorming, editing, sentence polishing, or writing an entire chapter. Where do you think the ethical line should be drawn?
Is that to me, Sneha?
Yes, that's to you.
Okay. Yeah. So, I have a slightly different view about AI. So I'm sorry if I'm going to be the one with that view, but I hope I have more company. I personally feel that AI is more like a partner, more like a co-founder in an entrepreneur mindset for the work I do, whatever it might be, including writing. And so, to that extent, I see it as a technology tool, and I, kind of leverage it in every part of what I do. I think my own feeling is that because writing is such an intensely personal exercise, um, the joy of it comes when you take an edge out of it and put it out in the world. And that edge might be the way you have a way with the words, or it might be some humor, or it might be an insight which you produce. And I think as long as you hold the pride of that, it's very hard for you to outsource that, because that's really where the joy of writing also comes. I mean, if the the need is to really put out content, like many marketers today use AI for that, then I guess it's fine. But for a writer, because the pride comes from having an edge in your point of view, having an edge in the way you write, or what you write, and the view that you have, I would be surprised that you would outsource that. So just to take an example, I might feel, yeah, and I do different types of writing. I do some writing on LinkedIn, and I do writing on Substack. And I noticed that I use AI very differently for both. So in the case of LinkedIn writing, for example, I know that my audience there, along with maybe what I write, it might be anything. Like the latest thing that I've written about is a series of 6 articles on networking. So then I would use AI a lot in researching what type of work has happened on networking. But even there, I find that AI is not bringing me as much new ideas as it is bringing me depth to the ideas I already have. Because if I'm writing about networking, I already have a point of view about networking. So, for example, when I started writing about networking, my point of view was that the normal thought process is that people believe that thick ties are the ones which get you networks, people you know very well. That's thick ties. While there is a sociology paper called The Power of Thin Ties, which is that, actually it's people you don't know who bring you new networks. So then I was able to get into that in more depth, though I knew the concept. Sorry, my dog is. So I think I use it differently for writing is more personal, which is what Substack tends to be, and different for LinkedIn, which is more professional on the research side. And then I look at also the aspect that there is a natural flow to how I write, and that natural flow has a narrative character to it. And can I break it up into craft? And let's say I'm learning that craft from a course where I've learned that, don't, show, don't tell is important. And so then I might want to practice that craft. That how do I look at what I've written, and I'll give it, let's say, 5 of my earlier articles, and say that give me examples of a better usage of show don't tell, and pick up my writing and help me understand what might be a better article or a better show don't tell. So as an example, I wrote something where it was in a writing workshop, and the writing prompt was, um, she slapped her laptop shut, and suddenly the rain started. And from there I wrote something which was just genuinely mine. But when I gave it back to AI to evaluate the craft, um, when I said that I said I didn't say shut the laptop. I said she slammed the laptop and jumped up as if in pain. And then the AI told me that I think slammed and jumped up is great because it's making the body come alive. But why are you saying that she was in pain? Instead, can't you show, don't tell? So I think it gave me a good understanding of craft as well. So as I keep doing this, I'm learning newer things. So I think there are elements of craft that I pick up and use AI for. And then I think the other thing which I feel AI can be very, very powerful is that, yes, I think AI does hallucinate. That's true. But it is about um, how you prompt it. So really what you prompt is very, very important, and how you structure that is really, really important. So to be able to, be able to ask the questions that might make your writing more powerful, I think is a very important direction to take. And for each person, what those questions are is going to be different. So I'll give an example. I think one of the things that came up for me was that I write memoir-based stuff, both on LinkedIn and on my Substack. So when I gave a bunch of my articles to AI, one of the things that came back to me was that you may want to examine that you are very adept at identifying the emotion, but you move through it very fast. So it really made me pause and spend, in fact, quite a few months thinking about that. Do I really do that? And so I think these are three things I would just want to point out. That one, I use it differently for different types of writing. Second, that I think I see it as an equal, a co-founder, a partner. So I don't treat it like an outsourced engine. And so that changes the nature of what I do with it. And third, I think learning the language of how I talk with it is very important. I'm constantly looking to improve the craft of prompting. So those are my thoughts.
Great, Ajay. So to quickly sum it up, Lalita uses it more for mechanical tasks, and you use it for research, for feedback, and AI as a co-partner. But both of you still emphasize on the craft, that the craft is important and that the writer must keep. That should not be outsourced. So I think that is the
and the core of my point is that actually, every technology, you lose your edge if you don't bring it to the table, right? So so to that extent, that edge is what I like to keep.
Very true. Okay, so both of you intersect at this point that AI, the voice of the writer should not be outsourced. That should stay authentic. All right, great thought. Now I move on to Nupur. Nupur, your question is, because you are more into reading than writing. Now, let me ask you, if an AI generated story makes you cry, so does it matter that no human experienced the emotions behind writing it?
Yeah, I would say that no, it really doesn't make us cry. When I come to know that it is AI written, my whole perspective of looking at it changes. So it definitely matters that the person that it is written from the heart, from someone's heart, from someone's, like, it can connect heart to heart. Then only I feel the connection. So that's true. But I really feel that AI can be used only for, like Ajay and Lalita said, only for assistance, like for just, it should just be able to empower you. Like the content, the story must be from the writer's heart, and then AI tools can be used to like make the language more expressive, or uh, bring it more expressively to the table. So I really feel that it can be used as an assistant, but not the story should be from a different human mind. Then only we can feel the connection. I sometimes come across many AI created videos also, like when in the days back, I was very impressed with this particular person who was posting some spiritual videos, like spiritual content, and then I always used to quote those things to others. And when I showed something to my son, and he told me, "Mama, it is AI created." अब देखो तो it just changed. I stopped seeing that altogether. I don't know why. The content was equally good. Like it was really touching my heart and all that. But as soon as I came to know it was AI created, then I suddenly felt that no, I can't see it anymore. So I think it should be from someone's heart. Then only it can make the connection.
All right. So having known that there is a human behind the writing, that connects you more with the story. All right. I
Yes.
agree. I mean, the same with me. I mean, if I come to know that this is AI written, the same thing that happened with the Commonwealth Short Story Prize. I mean, after reading the story, I came to know that this is the controversy going around it. So it really broke my heart. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Nupur. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Now, let me pose this question to Nibraz. Nibraz, the recent,
Hi,
again, this,
Sneha.
hi,
I just
Nibraz.
wanted to say
Yeah.
that the call to prayer is going on right now, so it will be very noisy. I would prefer if someone else goes before me till
Okay.
that is over.
All right, no problem. I'll go to Vishaka then. Vishaka, do you think is creativity found in producing every sentence yourself or in having an original idea that no machine could imagine?
So I think it's not an either or situation. And of course, I mean, creativity is, I mean, it's a complicated process in that sense, and there'll be so many elements to it and so many aspects to it. Of course, it starts with an idea, but how do you really execute it? Execute that idea also makes a great difference. And if even if the germ of the idea is same, um, two people can create something completely different out of it. For example, if you give the same brief to Gulzar Saab and Javed Akhtar Saab, the songs that would emerge from that same brief would be so very different. They will have each song would have its own stamp, the stamp of the writer on it, because it's really how they see the world, how they have experienced life. I mean, if both of us would be looking at the same flower, I'm sure our perspectives or what would come out of it would be different. I might be noticing the shape of the petals while you might be noticing the color of the flower. So of course that doesn't designifies the importance of a great idea, but I think the execution is what makes the difference. And I think that's where we as humans bring that we are that secret sauce to creating something which completely blows our mind, or we really get inspired. Like I was just listening, why I was giving you this Gulzar example, because I was listening to one of his songs today, and there was this line, Zari wale neele asman ke tale. Uh, so how do you really come up to that? Uh, so many people would be observing nature, but then what comes out of it is so individual. And I'm sure if Gulzar would have fed his writing to Gen AI, probably Gen AI would have found so many problems with that form of writing, because it would have a certain algorithm fed into it. So I think the execution really makes that difference. We can all have good ideas, but how you execute it really makes the difference. And that's why it's also very important to draw the line, because right now what we are seeing as a reader also, I feel that the writing that's being produced is becoming sort of homogenized. because of course there is use of AI, but at the same time, I think people who don't even want to use AI, there's a certain pressure of certain perfectionism in the writing, in the sentences, which I think is taking away that, that rough edge, which makes the writing, something which feels very human, which touches the heart. And I agree with Nupur when she says that when she came to know that this was AI generated, she felt disappointed because, as a reader, even I love to, something that I always do is when I finish reading a book, I go back and, search about the author, who he or she is. I want to know their life story because then I can feel the story, even more deeper, because I'm sure it has come from some of their life experiences. So it makes the story, that reading experience, even more richer for me when I, know the author, or when I attempt to know the author as a person. um and that's something that I've always done for any book that I've read. I've, literally just been curious about knowing about the author. So I think if it's all, if I know that there's no human element behind it, it feels, the words would feel a bit hollow as I read them. So that's what I think, that the way the idea is executed is where we bring our, personal flavor, so to say, to that idea.
Right. Right. Even I agree. When I'm informed that this is AI generated, it feels suddenly like a textbook. I mean, something you can learn from, but you can't really connect with. So that trust factor always fails in this. That is the reason why probably we are so disappointed after knowing that it is AI generated. And another thing you said, that idea, more than the idea, it's the treatment of that idea that matters to you more. And I was thinking about the movie Romeo and Juliet. It was directed by two filmmakers, Franco Zeffirelli and the Baz Luhrmann version. Baz Luhrmann's version. And Luhrmann's was more stylized and modern, and Zeffirelli's making was more traditional. So both the idea was the same. The story, in fact, the entire story was the same, but the treatment was so different. So you have scope of bringing so much of your voice into the treatment of the story. So that's what matters more than the idea. All right. Nibras, can I go ahead with the question to you now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you think authenticity is determined
One
by...
second. Sorry.
No problem. Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
All right. So, Nibras, do you think authenticity is determined by who wrote the words or who imagined the story?
I think I would start by asking what authenticity means. So authenticity is living the truth of what you're saying or believing in. So back when I was in college, we were taught about idealism. So we were taught that the idea is the primary source of everything. The idealistic school of thought believes in the primacy of the idea. So imagining the story, having the idea for the story, for me determines authenticity. But then I agree with Vishaka when she said that how that idea is then um represented or how it grows, that also matters. So if the idea is the primary source, and if the idea of a story or a poem is the primary source, then when you are being authentic, when you're living your truth, that is the process of creation of the story from that idea. So I would say that both of the things should matter because both of them ultimately lead to the same thing. If you have an idea for the story, that is your original thought process. And then you are living the truth of that idea by creating the story yourself instead of outsourcing it to um, an AI. And I think when we hear, even if we keep AI to the side, when we hear about ghostwriters, it's somebody else's idea and somebody else's name. It's not a very comfortable feeling, even though the person writing it is a human entity. There's a human voice behind it, but the idea belongs to someone else and someone else has the name for it. So I think with AI, it goes a step further in producing that distance between the reader and the story itself. So outsourcing, and I agree with what Lalita said about outsourcing, that AI would kind of may help you make those tabulate where you can submit your stories or help you with those kinds of tasks. But I think again that depends on something which is a very unpredictable entity, that is human will. We think that we have that kind of self-control, that when once we get an AI tool which is able to do almost anything, we'll use it exclusively for those kinds of works. So a solution to that would be that you would have an AI tool which is inbuilt into something like Microsoft Excel or something which you already have, and it is able to do only those tasks like tabulating, etc. You don't have the freedom to make it generate a story for you. So in that sense, like I agree with both of them on these 2 points. So that if I have to think about the use of AI, if it must be used, that is how it should have been uh, integrated into the tools that are already available to us. And also, obviously, I always say it, I would prefer if the environmental cost was also less. If there were less environmental cost and they could integrate it into these apps, that would be the ideal use of AI for writer. And if you're using AI as a self-improvement tool, let's say I write something and I want it to analyze how good my writing is or point out the flaws in it. If AI is doing that for me, then I feel like somehow that's stunting my growth as a writer. And in a traditional setting, when you're writing and you give out your writing to beta readers, and if it's accepted somewhere, then it goes to the editor. So there's a lot of feedback from beta readers and editors. So you are putting a break on that whole process. You were getting human input on how to improve your writing. So you are substituting those human inputs for inputs from an AI source. I think that would also impact what we have been constantly referring to as the human touch in your stories. So outsourcing to improve that I would not agree with. Like I don't want to use AI as an outsourcing tool to help me point out my flaws. I'd rather have a human being on the other side, a beta reader, an editor. And when I published my 2 stories, I had a little bit of a back and forth with editors, and it was an amazing process. Like the things that they suggested, they greatly improved my story. And when you work with editors based on in which country you are, they give you feedback according to that. So all of those things, I don't see AI playing those kinds of similar roles.
But how about those, Nibraz, who cannot reach out to a beta reader? Maybe they are too shy, or editor sometimes charges too much. So don't you think it's a very accessible help available just next to you, using the AI tool for guiding you or analyzing your writing?
Uh, on the outset, it would appear yes. I've not used AI a lot to gauge my own writing. Although I'm in biology, we use a lot of my colleagues are using AI all the time and they have to write review papers. That is how they get written now. They feed everything into AI, it formats out a review paper, and then they edit it. They still have to edit it. There's although everything is factual in the paper, but they have to edit it anyway. So the thing is that although it is accessible, whenever I've told it to, even as a like, I wanted to test some poetry which I had written, because there was a lot of discussion around AI just a few months back in the group, and then I decided to see what kind of an output it would give me. And the kinds of things that it said, like as a diagnostic tool for writing, did not make a lot of sense to me. Like if AI tells you something like the pacing of this is fast, I don't think the AI understands what that it itself doesn't understand what that pacing means. So I feel like although it is accessible, but if people are using it just for the accessibility, I doubt it would enable the kind of growth that they might be looking for as a writer.
Okay, so you're insisting on placing a personal ethical boundary on using AI only for the technical mechanical work and not
Yeah,
crossing it
definitely. Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Great thought, Nibraz. Coming back to you, Lalita.
Mhm.
How do you think we can teach students or young learners to tell stories that AI cannot?
That's an interesting question because today's generation is very curious. Like you tell your children not to do something, rest assured they will do it. So I think it's rather than telling them, this is something that you shouldn't be experimenting with. It's just about teaching them how to be responsible, to understand the implications of what they're using. So curiously, today morning I was reading this article from McKinsey Quarterly on brain capital about how today's generation is anxious and how AI is taking away jobs. And what do we need? What do we need? We need to build brain capital. And how do we do it? Through resilience, through empathy, through a sense of purpose, through spirituality. And none of this can be taught by a machine or by an AI, right? So that whole how do you build creative thinking when you have a machine that's dishing out answers? You're making stuff easy, and easy never helped, right? You have to learn by experimenting, asking questions, and not taking things at a face value. And the generation of today is quite intelligent. So it's about telling them that, listen, use it only as an assistant or a collaborative tool. Don't use it to do your homework. Ask questions, that's fine. And also be careful with what you're sharing online because the internet is a very dangerous place. Be very careful with the information you're sharing. We don't know how copyright works, how LLMs are trained. For example, we don't know that the stuff that you're putting in may be used to train a model, or you may be looking up answers which is based upon somebody else's creative work, and you don't want to infringe that, right? So it's also about, and also one thing that you can use as an example for storytelling, right? You can ask a child, can you write a story based on a lived in experience? Maybe it was the first time you ate something that your grandmother made, or it could be a very unforgettable experience, something that no machine can recreate. It's your most precious memory that brings out that human element and that connectivity. And you can tell them that this is all you, this is your work. No machine is going to bring that emotion because you lived through that experience, and the machine cannot see, smell, or remember or feel emotions the way a human does, right? It can replicate, but it's not the same, right? And that's the kind of conversations we need to have. And again, I have a teenager at home who gives me a lecture on energy conservation. So I play the same card back, the reverse card, and tell her about data centers and carbon footprint, and tell her to be very careful while using GPT. I think we need to tell children that GPT is not Google. It's not a Google replacement. It's a search optimization tool, but don't use it for simple searches because data centers, heat, carbon emissions, footprint, everything, right? So you also have to be very careful and responsible. You have to understand the pros and cons. You cannot treat GPT as a therapist. You cannot treat AI as a doctor. You have to be careful with what you ask. You need to have an adult hovering around in case you have any doubts. Do not do it for you. Do not use it to replace solving your homework or writing an essay. Use it for critique, but in a balanced way. Yeah. And I think classrooms are implementing some kind of controls and checks, but again, it's a learning process back and forth because the new generation wants to experiment and find out on their own. So it is a balance. It's like what we used to face with screen time and digital devices. One more to the list parents have to worry about.
Now parents are worrying less about the television and the internet. Now they are more
Now it's all
concerned about
GPT, right?
Now it's all vegetables.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
agree with you. I agree with you, Lalita. And these days I'm seeing that for every small assignment, students are using AI. It's very difficult for the teachers to always, regurgitating that, giving those instructions again and again, that please don't do it. And this is where you need to have your own thoughts, etc., etc. But one thing, I have observed, I let them use AI. I mean, it's just an experiment as a teacher. Initially, I just let them use AI. You go home, use AI for your assignments, but come back in the classroom and discuss why did you choose these arguments, as your assignment points. So come and discuss that, have a dialogue with the teacher. And that, made them think that I can have my own thought process, which is very different from my classmate. So that made them, move towards original thinking and finding that uniqueness in their voice. I think this process, and slowly, I believe they will come to a point where they realize that outsourcing original thinking is not really a good idea. So great thought, Lalita. I do agree that we need to drive home the point that when to use AI and when not to. All right. My next question to you is to Vishaka. Vishaka, how do you think AI changes the relationship between readers, writers, and stories?
I think of course, with AI and however, whatever we say and as we speak, there is, I mean, use of AI going on. And of course, I agree with what both Nibras and Lalita said about, use of AI restricted to our, basically administrative tasks or stuff like that. But we know that as we speak, there are people who would be using AI for creating stories, in creative fields. Now you have these websites which are creating songs and music using AI, and we must have listened to some of the others, especially in reels that we watch. And there's so much creation that's gonna happen through AI. I think, but I was just reading this in an interview, and what they were saying is that the use of AI would do in times to come would be that they would actually raise the bar in each industry. So, um, of course, great musicians or great writers will never go out of work or would never become redundant in this space, because the bar for creation would actually increase. You would have people creating with GPTs and assisted tools, but then the writers which who have the craft will actually go one step ahead of them, and so the bar will actually rise. And be it in music, so you would I mean, let's take example of music again, like AR Rahman. If he has to compete with the music that's created with GPT, we know that he can anyways go a step further. So if he has these tools along with the understanding of music that he has, he can create something really extraordinary, which just an AI assisted music would just not be able to match. So I think it will raise the bar in all artistic pursuits, is what I feel. And I mean, even for now, like each one of us mentioned how, we could not relate to the AI assisted stories. I mean, be it, as Sneha gave a wonderful example of the Commonwealth Prize stories, and we've had a side discussion on that earlier as well, that how, some of those stories, they just don't click. So that will happen. So I think readers will also learn to discern between, what is a human written story and what has, what level of AI assistance has come in. So that would definitely, happen. And I think it would also define the tastes of the reader, because now, so, think back 2 years ago, if now we actually like stories which are not that polished. Yeah. I mean, we love if there are some mistakes, or, what we would call as mistakes, or, some flaws in the story, we really enjoy or connect to those stories, because we have that trust that, this has come from the author and it's not a machine which is telling this story. So I think the way readers perceive a piece of story would also change. And I think in times to come, it would become even more important to have a really personal relationship with your reader as an author. I feel that, because in that world of so many pieces, I mean, every day so much is content is getting created through AI, and it has just expedited the time in which you can create a novel or a story. But in the end, what makes a difference is how we connect. What we also discussed earlier, we also connect to a story through the author. So I think that relationship between the author and the writer, and also making it more personalized, I think that will become important. I mean, and of course we have great writers on the panel, so they can add to it. But I feel that relationship would become even more important in days to come. In terms of the role of AI coming into this picture.
I agree with you, Vishaka. And we always look up to human heroes, Whenever we feel I am in Dehradun, I would wait for Ruskin Bond to come out and, sign the books. So we want those human heroes for our books, We can't look up to an AI giving out, no matter how wonderful the language is. And you again brought up a very good point about the mistakes that we make. If we see some flaws, some errors, that makes us feel that it's written by a human, and that connects us more with the story. And this is what is happening in education as well. Students are using human AI humanizers. So they are getting the refined version corrected and humanized again with another AI. So this is what is AI. It's crossing all the limits.
So now there's a humanizer on top of the AI, is it, to make it sound like a human? I mean, I have nothing to say.
I know.
I think to just add on to this, I would like to say creativity for creativity's sake. I think that is what also is a very important element. Like, for example, if we go back to times when we started writing or reading, I mean, there was no AI in place, or also, I don't think we had publishing also in mind. I think we just started reading or writing just because of the sheer joy of it, or the thrill we felt after producing a piece of writing. I think it was what brought us to, create or write. Of course, I mean, if we keep the writing that we probably do at work, or Ajay talked about like creating LinkedIn posts, keeping that aside. But what we write, creative writing is what we do for just for our own sake. So I feel AI would take, if you just create a piece out of that, it just takes away that joy. And I think as a teacher, I also feel, reconnecting students to that joy that we have experienced creating something from scratch, and also making them feel that it's not perfection is not something that's numero uno in the scheme of things. So I think that's really important as we go forward.
Very true, Vishaka. And that makes me ask another question, and this question goes to Nupur, particularly because you are so much into reading, Nupur. Similar to what I asked you earlier, do you think readers are they're looking more for beautiful language, or they are looking for another human mind? If we talk in terms of fiction, okay,
Yes.
for nonfiction, we usually look for another human mind or new information. But how
Yes.
far is language important for a reader?
I feel language is definitely important. Beautiful language is like, we really like to read such things, expressive language. But it will be great if it comes out, like, it will be wonderful if it comes out from a human mind, not from a machine. The beautiful language should also come from a human mind. Like, I'm reading this book of everlasting things, and such beautiful language used at some points. Like, and when I realized that it came from somebody else's mind, then it really, I'm in awe of it, I would say. And especially with reading fictional books, I feel, uh, when we read a book, we create the whole scene, the whole story in our mind. So when we do create it in our mind, it feels wonderful when we realize it came out from somebody else's mind, not from a machine. So especially with the books, fictional books, I feel, when we see a movie, it's just like the external thing. We are just seeing it. But when we read a book, we just get immersed in it. We just create this whole world. I live in that book. I practically live in that. I've read I love fictional books, and especially the fantasy fiction and all. And I love to create those scenes in my mind. And I feel that I am going in that world. Like, I'm living in that world. So it feels amazing that someone else, the one who wrote it, felt the same way, and the others who will be reading it, will feel the same way. So it all seems very authentic. And when it is just AI created, like, the whole magic vanishes, I would say. So language is important, but human mind is more important. Heart, it is something written from someone's heart, is more important, I would say.
Okay, I get that. Nupur, so writing the language matters to you, but it matters more if it has come from a human mind.
Yeah.
All right. Nibras, is that you who's logging in from another device? Okay, I think, all right. Ajay, the same question goes to you, but in terms of translation. So when you read a translated version, for example, I am reading Feluda by Gopa Majumdar, a translated work from Bengali. So that is a similar kind of relationship. AI is usually refining your writing, and you're reading a content from AI generated a book. But then how does that dynamic change when you're reading a translated work versus you're reading an AI generated work?
No, I think that's such a nice question. So just thinking about it as you have asked it, one is that the translator is bringing so much of her or his personal experiences into a translation. Like for example, in Sanskrit especially, a lot of the words can mean so many things. And so I've noticed that when I look at English translations of Vedantic work, I keep coming up when the people who are translating talk about this fact that look, the word can mean so many things, and they talk about these different meanings and then relate to one little more powerfully given their background. So I think translators bring a lot of their personal life into what they translate, and I think the joy of seeing that come through actually adds a different dimension to the original work as well. And so I treat AI like just another translator, and to that extent, how what do you seek of the translator? In this case, can be customized. So you could say that I want a translation of so and so English work, but I want it in colloquial Hindi. Don't use any big word which I wouldn't understand. And I can imagine that translation would be very, very, very different than a translator who is good at Hindi and has now translated the English basis her or his experience of life. So I might also go on to say that look, I like a bunch of translators and particularly enjoy their work. And so I could further tell AI to reference those translators and then to bring in this dimension of feeling the pathos more. And like many times, what happens in languages is that the word is in our language, any Indian language, is far more representative of the emotion than the English word. And so if you give that instruction to the AI, that you bring that aspect in and give the instruction to maybe follow a few translators, you can produce something very, very different, and I would enjoy doing that. I would enjoy looking at that. So
So that
that's
was from the perspective of a writer, Ajay. How about when you're
no,
reading
no, a reader.
content?
From a reader's perspective, if I wanted to read a translation, I could.
Okay.
I was talking a bit from a reader's perspective.
All right. So you're giving a Hindi content and asking AI to translate it, and then you're just to understand it as a reader, right?
No,
Is
no,
that
no.
what you
I'm
mean?
saying, suppose there's an English classic which I want to read in Hindi, and I'm giving. So there are many other translators who have actually translated it, and now I'm giving it to AI, and I'm saying that look, I like this translator. She's not translated this particular classic into Hindi as yet, but I like her style of writing. She uses a lot of colloquial Hindi, and I enjoy that. I don't want a single word which I wouldn't understand. Given that I've not studied Hindi beyond, let's say, eighth standard. So then that brief becomes very personalized to me, and the translation I get might be very different. And I might actually enjoy that much more. And I think the point is that it's not, we are accepting another mind. The moment we take translations and consider them to be legitimate, we're already accepting another mind as a legitimate vehicle for a literary work. So why not treat AI as just one more mind and use that more effectively because we now customize it. So that's my point of view as a reader.
All right. So to an extent, you're okay if AI works as a translator, and it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
fact is, yeah, giving you
Two,
more insight. Hmm.
yeah, I just had two more points to make. Can I do that?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, Ajay. Yeah.
Of time. But one was this whole point about environment. And I think sometimes people, when there's new technology, there's so many barriers that all of us have about the new tech that we pick up things which are negative without maybe looking at it in a different way. I mean, for example, India, 75% of our power comes from coal. But would we switch off our light right now as we are doing this call because the light is coming from power which comes from coal, which is exceedingly polluting? But we don't mind saying that chat gpt, let's limit our usage because it's going to have server capacity which goes up. So that's, I think one balance I would bring into looking at this new tech as a way. And the other thought that I have is that, I have um, I'm an engineer, I'm an MBA, but I know the educators, you and Sneha, you and others on this group, so I would be careful of the words I'm using. But I've really not liked my education system ever. I've always found it to be a control freak, and I've always found evaluation to be single dimensional based on memory. And I think for the first time in our life right now, we are seeing that teachers who, there used to be one teacher in my engineering college who gave open book exams, and I loved him. And I did beautifully in his papers because he made me think. while everybody else forced you to regurgitate, use your memory, apply analytical thought which is accepted by people who are good and not a new analytical thought. So I think it's a wake-up call to the education system. Wake up and smell the coffee, or just get rid of the need to even have you in the process, is how I see it. So I know it's a slightly aggressive take, but sorry about that.
No, it's just your perspective, and different perspectives are most welcome here. All right, so a great thought, Jay. But let me move on to the next question. Coming back to our Commonwealth Short Story Prize controversy, because we have been discussing a lot about this, I thought I'll just mention it here. Nibras, this question is to you. What do you think literary prizes should evaluate today? The final text, the writing process, or both?
I think both. The final text as well as the writing process, because the final text is evaluated anyway. Interestingly, I got an email from Commonwealth. I think everybody got that. They are halting their these submissions for the year because they want to reevaluate their policies for evaluating those the stories. And then when you're evaluating the process that led to the creation of the story, that I think lends more credibility, because that is when you're evaluating how that idea has been worked upon, how the idea has grown, how the writer has worked on the idea. So I think, yeah, the process which led to the maturation of the story also needs to be evaluated. I can't think of like a robust way to do that yet without getting into a lot of technicalities, like how would they do it. But I think it's better if they would consider both the things, the final product as and the process.
All right, great. I totally agree with you, Nibras. It's the process also really matters, and that actually makes the story human. All right. So
There's
one last,
also,
yeah,
I want to say something else also.
sure, sure.
With regard to the homogenization of writing, we keep thinking about talking about these MFA courses which have homogenized writing already. You can
Yeah.
recognize an MFA writer right away. I think AI writing is the same kind of writing. You could recognize that it's written by AI. And ChatGPT is not the only AI model. It's at this point kind of obsolete. Now we have Gemini, Claude, and everything else, and they are much better than ChatGPT. This morning, for the sake of this session, I decided to use AI to write a story, but without giving any kind of an idea, so called, to AI. My prompt was, tell me a story. That's all. I didn't tell it to put any kind of emotion in it, and it generated the story. And I'll send the story after this call in the group, and you people can judge the merit of the story. I mean, by itself, it's completely AI without any additional, directions that I have given to it. And also, this homogenization that we are talking about, when you write with AI again and again and again, and then there's a point at which you start giving the prompts that, no, I feel like this paragraph is weak, do this, do that. And then there is a time when you start saying that I can't feel like it's written by me. It doesn't have my voice. Write it more like I would have written it. Just like you ask it to write more like this author, that author. So I think that is the danger point. When you're asking the AI to write it more like you would have written it, that is what should tell you that you're using it the wrong way. You cross that line and you're asking AI to tell you who you are. And also about the environmental cost of AI. I know that because the argument that Ajay just gave, my cousin gives me the same argument about already there's so much environmental pollution, so many processes already going on, which are already polluting the environment. But I think it is that we are already in a state of like there's water crisis. We already want to cut down on carbon emissions, and AI is a technology that capitalists are heavily interested in and heavily investing in. I was looking at these articles, and I think everybody of you should read them. That ever since AI was first rolled out, the investments in AI have tripled almost in a very short span of time. So the more investments that go into AI, the more capitalist interests that go into AI, the higher the environmental cost of AI will be. And AI is using a resource which is already scarce. That's fresh water. And it's not just that AI data centers are consuming fresh water, because I'm a biologist. So the natural world is very sensitive to minor changes in the environment. If when they use the water to cool the data centers, the water is dumped back into the environment, and that water has a different temperature. So those organisms which live in those water bodies are very sensitive to temperature changes. So you see the change in the flora and fauna of those water bodies when the water keeps on getting dumped. And these AI data centers run 24 hours a day. So there's continuous cooling of those servers, and those servers use more energy than normal servers that we are using. And it's things like that. They heat up the land within a certain radius of where the data centers are. And the problem is that the number of data centers is also increasing. And recently there was this controversy about, I don't remember a CEO of which AI company who said that we should not focus on, it's not important for humans to have potable drinking water, fresh water. We need to make sure that the AI data centers have it. And then there are these billionaires who want to build data centers in third world countries because they don't want to be responsible for emissions. So we already have high emissions. Already our environment is degraded, and they want to bring that heated water and rising land temperatures also to the third world countries. So there's a lot of that politics, geopolitics at play over there. So because their interest in AI is increasing and they're investing more, that means that the expansion is going to be huge, especially if you're integrating AI into everything.
Exactly, and I saw this figure of 700,000 liters of water for data center cooling, and the planet is already facing a water shortage because of climate change. Like, we can sit now and say, yeah, it's an enabler, but a few years down, we will need water, not technology, to live our lives.
Very true.
And I think the problem here is that you really don't know how, where to draw the line, because I mean, now even your regular like applications on computer or on your phone are integrating AI in some sense that you're not even aware of. So I
Correct.
mean, it is being plugged in everywhere, and especially for entertainment, like people are creating reels out of it or so many other things where it's just not needed, like spaces where you would, I mean, you cannot justify the environmental cost that it's causing. You will can just not justify.
See,
And
who
I
will
think
suffer? It is as Nibras correctly said, right? It's going to be the third world countries. The rich will get away with it. Even today, the kind of witch hunt that happens over AI, who's being accused? The newbie authors or authors of color, they're the ones who are being accused and penalized, right? So this is going to expose more inequality. It may be a negative way of viewing things, but how do you make sure it lands and privilege doesn't play a part in this equation? That's all.
All right. So, guys, I think everything boils down to one very important point, what kind of prompts we are giving to AI. So either when it comes to storytelling or when it comes to even mechanical things, sometimes we are giving simple prompts to a higher version of AI, which is consuming more energy. So we need to be really careful with that. It's just like asking how to buy grocery to a PhD holder. So sometimes, and that causes more energy consumption. If we read about it, this is also one of the very significant points that our discussion has brought up today. All right, so one very quick rapid fire round for all of you, and you have to answer in just one line. And the question is, okay, let me ask you this. You have to complete this sentence in one line or one word. AI will never replace dash. AI will never replace dash. Starting from you, Ajay. Just one line, one word.
AI will never replace individual agency.
Nupur?
AI will never replace human emotions.
Okay. Vishaka?
AI will never replace human perspective.
Lalita?
AI will never replace the human spirit.
And Nibras?
I think I'd go with AI will never replace human imagination.
Wonderful. And I would say AI would never replace the lived experiences that humans have. And with that, guys, I would like to conclude this session. I had a wonderful time listening to all of your perspectives. And I hope soon we have a round two where we can go in depth about how AI is damaging the environment, damaging the surrounding, because we have so many different perspectives on that topic as well. So thank you so much for being here, and see you soon in the next discussion.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.